Okay, so let's talk about the possible fates of carbon dioxide. Remember, O2 comes in via the lungs, distributed into the arteries, and carried by the red blood cells, and then offloaded at the tissues. And it's depending on the affinity for oxygen on hemoglobin and temperature, proton concentration, as well as the concentration of DPG, can all have an effect on the affinity of oxygen. So once the oxygen gets into the cells, it's metabolized, cellular respiration happens, and CO2 is produced. We have three potential fates of this. We could have it dissolve the carbon dioxide into the plasma. So it would look like this. Number one, CO2. We just have it floating in there, and it's going to be in the plasma. We can also have it carried by the hemoglobin. So this would be the carbaminohemoglobin, and it looks like this, HbCO2. And then lastly, the most likely fate is the bicarbonate buffer system. So this looks like once the CO2 enters the red blood cell, we're going to have this ion here, this anion, chlorine right here. And our red blood cell is going to have the ability to take the CO2 and it's going to combine it with water. And we're going to yield H2, sorry, I put one, CO3 right there. And then from there, carbonic acid is going to allow this to disassociate. I'm just going to follow the arrow here to H plus HCO3 negative. And then this HCO3 is going to end up out here. And the chlorine is going to come in and take its place. So we have this shift, this chloride shift here. And then this is going to follow, it's all the way there to the heart. And the red blood cell is still going to have, we're going to have CO2 in solution. It's going to come in here and out. We're going to have HbCO2, carbaminohemoglobin. That's going to disassociate. CO2, diffuse across the capillary wall into the alveolus and out the door, once again with CO2. And then lastly, we have this HCO3 minus hanging out here and this ion. And if you remember, we had this chloride that was in here that took a ride up here, and we have this reaction that ends up happening this way. So we have this HCO3 that comes in, plus the H plus, carbonic acid. It's going to yield water plus CO2. CO2 comes out and blown off that way. And then the chloride comes back out to balance the cell. This is the bicarbonate buffer system, and anytime we see these chlorides shifting in and out of the cell, that's called the Bohr effect, B-O-H-R effect.